Good evening. There is growing political pressure on BBC bosses tonight after an embarrassing climb down that saw Gary Lineker reinstated as Match of the Day presenter. The Director-General Tim Davie announced the return of the organisation's highest paid presenter after he'd been suspended in a row over impartiality. There will now be a review of social media guidance, and there have also been renewed calls for the controversial BBC chair, Richard Sharp, to stand down, with the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying his position is untenable. But despite a weekend of chaos and reputational damage, Tim Davie insists he did the right thing. Neil Connery has the latest.
After 3 days of drama, Gary Lineker learned this morning that he would be back, presenting Match of the Day after a crisis which has damaged the BBC.
I've already said what I'm going to say on Twitter. If I say anything more now, it just encourages people to doorstep me.
Well, we're finished now. Confirming a deal had been reached with the corporation, he wrote, "After a surreal few days, I'm delighted that we have navigated a way through this. I want to thank you all for the incredible support, particularly my colleagues at BBC Sport for the remarkable show of solidarity."
Sorry we're unable to show our normal Match of the Day too.
The BBC was forced to broadcast limited football coverage this weekend. Lineker was asked to step back after tweeting that the language used in the government's asylum plan was not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 1930s. The BBC says Lineker has now agreed to follow editorial guidelines while a review on social media policy takes place.
Asking Gary Lineker to step aside, I think, was appropriate at that moment. Then we reset and we do the things we've laid out in this agreement, which I think are right, and we go forward. Absolutely not affected by pressure from one party or the other. That is not how we work editorially in the BBC. It's a convenient narrative. It's not true.
I think the BBC really went awry when it suspended Gary, because if it had simply said, let's keep you on air on Match of the Day for another few weeks while we resolve this, that would have been a better approach rather than causing this confrontation, which made everybody in BBC Sport walk out.
The BBC will be hoping it's done enough to end this immediate crisis, but the damage left behind is clear to see. Its impartiality and independence are its bedrock, and when they're perceived to have been weakened, the corporation's reputation suffers.
I gave no financial advice to the Prime Minister.
The row has put further pressure on the BBC's chairman, Richard Sharp, already facing questions and an investigation for his help facilitating an £800,000 loan guarantee for then Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
I think Richard Sharp's position is increasingly untenable. Obviously, there's a process going on, but I think most people watching the complete mess of the last few days would say, how on earth is he still in position and Gary Lineker has been taken off air? While the BBC deals with the fallout from this crisis, Gary Lineker says he can't wait to get back into the Match of the Day chair on Saturday.
Well, Neil's here. It's not been a great day, or couple of days, few days for the BBC, has it? How much damage do you think has been done?
I think this has done a lot of damage to the BBC. In the short term, they'll be hoping that this agreement with Gary Lineker today will buy them some time. But if only this deal had been reached on Friday, then this whole crisis needn't have played out in the way that it has, Mary, over the weekend. Some Tory MPs have criticised the BBC this evening. Philip Davis called the news a pathetic capitulation to Lineker and the start of the end for the licence fee. We heard from the Labour leader in our report. They're raising questions over the BBC chairman's position. Tonight, the BBC is still taking flak from all sides.
OK. Neil Connery, thank you.